Very, very happy to be in person for the first time in, well, almost a year and a half. Let's start our meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance. Billy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And there
Hey, how you doing, Hot Rod? I said hello, Pee-wee.
Hello.
Hey, what's wrong?
Nothing.
Come on, Pee-wee, you can trust me. Tell me, what's wrong?
It's been a crummy day, okay? Let's just leave it at that.
Turn that frown upside down, Pee-wee. Got some special mail here for you.
What's so special about it?
Well, what's so special is that it's mail from foreign lands. And you know what that means, don't you?
Yes, I do.
That means it's time for... Pen Pals from around the world!
Walt, would you like to introduce our speaker today?
Well, actually, it's me, for one, but
Okay.
also my partner in this effort is Nancy Amaker. She's the activities coordinator with the schools in community in schools program at the Paxenosa Elementary School. And interestingly enough, come to find out, when we was communicating with each other, that we had one of her children as a K kid when they were at March Elementary School. So it was just kind of an interesting side when we got talking about things. But anyway, how this idea all came about for the Pen Pal program was back at the beginning of the school semester when things were totally confusing. But I sent an email on the 16th of September of 2020 to the faculty advisors that we had for our 4 K-Kids programs and our Builders Club program, seeing if they would have any interest in doing anything at all with the Kiwanis Club of Easton, that that might help them as far as the students or keeping the students involved somehow or another. And I suggested the possibility of maybe a Pen Pal program. Back when I was in elementary school a long, long time ago, why I had a pen pal from London, England. And it was one of our English teachers that wanted us to work on, developing thoughts and hopefully more getting better at penmanship by writing letters. So I thought, well, this might be something that we could do possibly as the Kiwanis Club of Easton with the faculty advisors at the 4 elementary schools and then up at the middle school if they wanted to do that. And I got 1 or 2 responses back from a couple of the faculty advisors who appreciated my offer, but felt that things were so confusing at this point through the school district as far as what was going to take place. I believe they were only doing students from part of the class on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then they were doing the other students depending on the first letter of their last name on Thursdays and Fridays. Wednesdays, the schools were all closed so that the custodians could do the sanitizing and the disinfecting. So the kids, I guess, were doing like cyber classes during the Wednesday, and then also the ones that weren't going to school during 2 of those days, they were doing their classes by way of cyber, as it was explained to me. So it just so happens that one of Nancy's associates, Janine Steneleas, serves on the the advisory board for the Cops and Kids program, as well as another community and services person at Cheston Elementary School, Astrid Pina. So I was talking at this one advisory meeting of the Cops and Kids of Easton advisory meeting about the possibility of maybe the Cops and Kids doing something as far as a pen pal program to try to keep the youngsters engaged that were able to show up at the Easton Area Community Center, the reading room there, or down where they had another reading room at the Northampton Community College branch. So, but when I mentioned that, Janine thought that would be a really great idea, possibly as an activity for some of the students at Paxinosa. And she said she would mention it to her fellow activities person there at Paxinosa. So she ended up hooking me up with Nancy Amaker. So Nancy and I started communicating by email about the possibility of doing a pen pal program. And in the meantime, I had a much broader idea. I was originally thinking of one of our new Easton Kiwanians, Kathy Heller. I knew that she was a retired teacher from the Nazareth Elementary School, and I thought, well, if we start a pen pal program with the Paxinosa Elementary School, maybe somehow or another, Kathy might have some connection with some teachers there at the Schaefer Elementary School, which is right across the street from her. So we initially tried that, and I guess it was a little bit of a challenge. So we'll leave it there. And then in the meantime, with one of the people who used to come on to our Zoom meetings from down in Jamaica, Hope Mackus, she thought it would be interesting for one of the people that she knew of that was a teacher with the Ministry of Education down in Jamaica. So she sent me the information of Stacy Ann Shaw, and I communicated that email address to Nancy in case we wanted to start doing something where the kids could start writing to somebody in a different country than the United States. But then in the meantime, I started getting a lot of friend invitations on Facebook from other people who apparently belong to Kiwanis clubs in other countries. And they were friending certain other people here that were Kiwanis members, most of them that were involved with the Kiwanis International, more so than locally. And I thought, well, you know, if these people from Kiwanis International were accepting a friend offer from somebody else, another Kiwanian somewhere in the world, that I guess it was safe for me to friend them too, which is how it came about with Simon, who's on now, and also another young man that I have been communicating with, Michael, who is from Uganda in Africa. And but anyway, after talking with Nancy, we kind of put a hold on starting to do a pen pal thing with some members that had contacts with teachers in foreign countries, and just try to keep it more local. But at this point, I've actually friended people in at least 13 different countries, the majority of them being members of the Kiwanis International, their local clubs, and one person who didn't know anything about Kiwanis initially from Hong Kong, but was interested in hearing more about the Kiwanis clubs. So I've basically at this point have friended several people from at least 13 different countries at this point. But now I will throw it over to Nancy to let her give us an update on what she's been doing since we initially started communicating with each other. So Nancy, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you. I have the whole building to myself today because we're closed for cleaning, so it's nice and quiet. I was so excited when Walter came to me with his idea. I like to write letters. I think it's a great way to communicate with people. So I was very excited and thought we could get it started right away, which we did. But there's always going to be hiccups, COVID being a really huge one. As things were progressing, things would change. We would have a group of people who would write a letter, and then we would close for a couple of days because of an outbreak. Or one of the other challenges too was students here, they were fluctuating between hybrid, which is 2 days a week, 3 days off, or remote. So they would go from remote to hybrid. So we didn't always have the same kids in the classroom. And that was what was really kind of making things, excuse me, difficult. So we kept pursuing that, but then I had another idea that I was able to partner with one of the 8th grade honors English teachers at the middle school. As you know, the transition from elementary to the middle school is big. It's frightening. When my kids went from March to the middle school, they went from a school that had less than 400 students to this monstrosity. And because of COVID, our students weren't able to go get a tour like they did in past years. So there was just even more anxiety. So what I did was I reached out to Renee Althouse, who happens to be both of my kids' favorite teacher. And I said, what if we did something between your 8th graders and our 5th graders? And so we kind of just gave them an idea, like, what would you ask someone about going to the middle school? So they wrote back and forth, and I actually have a huge stack of letters. I actually almost cried when I read them. They were just so sweet and kind. Because kids won't come out and tell you like, oh, I'm scared, but they'll write it down, and they wrote to each other. And every single one of them was afraid of getting lost, which is definitely a possibility in that building, because the 5 years my son was there, I got lost every single time I tried to find the gymnasium. But this is something that we're going to keep going through the summer, because I am here over the summer. But I'll just read you a very quick one of the letters, and it says, this is from the 8th grader to our 5th grader. It says, hi, Juan Carlos. My name is Xavier, and I'm an 8th grader at the middle school. I just thought I would take some time to introduce myself. I like playing sports, like basketball and baseball, and I also enjoy running. In my spare time, I like playing board and video games with my family and friends. What are some things that you like to do? Also, if you have any questions about the middle school, just let me know. And then Juan Carlos wrote back to him. And it's just something where I went up and I talked to them afterwards. These are students in Dee Lohman's class. A lot of you may know Dee. And they felt so much better knowing that everything they were afraid of, these 8th graders were afraid of when they were transitioning. And I think as the year progresses and things start to go back to normal, we'll be able to do more of what Walter had wanted to do, because the class numbers won't be as much in flux. And we could do something where they could partner with a Kiwanis club in another country that maybe they were studying. And that's our long haul plan. But for this, I feel like it gets the kids, even if we just do it within the elementary schools and the middle school, there'll be kids that know each other before they get to the middle school. And that kind of demystifies a lot of it. And then I also told Walter, when my son was in 1st grade, and he'll be a junior next year, he was pen pals in his 1st grade class with the honors English students at the high school. And they wrote back and forth during the whole school year. And it was great. I mean, they wrote about Legos and, whatever a 1st grader likes to do. But then at the end of the year, they met up at the high school and they had a kickball game. So when and if we're permitted to do that, I would like to have either the students come here to Paxinosa or have our students go to the middle school and have them meet up, maybe have lunch together. And almost turn it into like a mentoring program, but keeping the writing back and forth.
Did you ever pursue, I know that Mr. Mondello originally started to have his students write to give some letters that I delivered to Kathy a while back, but I think you continued to pursue some things with Mr. Mondello's class up at March Elementary School.
It was actually Mrs. Kresge's class at March. She had both of my children. So I pursued some things. The problem was, or one of the problems was, when I reached out, it was right when the district made the decision to start sending the kids back 4 days a week. So there was such an amount of change. We try and make a concerted effort not to put anything extra on the teachers right now. They have so much going on. So I didn't feel like I could keep going up and saying, hey, do you have that letter? Do you have that letter? But, just wrote it down in the back of my mind for the future, for when things are a little bit more normal. And I was actually, I had one of the Junior Honor Society officers from the high school call me, and she wanted to be involved with the school. And I think that's something we could also do as well, is have them sit down. Not all of our students have great writing skills. They don't teach cursive anymore. So a handwritten letter is kind of a rarity. So I think if our high school students sat down with some of our younger kids, they could help them with that as well.
And you also, this was something I had a kind of a broad idea, but our president Janet wanted to know if we had some criteria developed, and I reached out to you, and you actually did. Can you kind of give us an overview of the either the criteria, or I'm not sure if I'm saying the right word, but
I think that was the word we were using. First and foremost, kid safety is top of the list. So we told the kids, do not share any personal information. They're not going to write down their parents' ATM number, but even just an address is not a safe thing. We didn't use last names for the same reason. And I gave them some guidance as to what to write about. Leading questions like, what activities do you like? And then I also made sure before any letters were passed back and forth, I read them all for content, also to make sure there wasn't something that I needed to let someone know about. As a mandated reporter, I have to make sure our kids are safe first and foremost. But then the rest of it, after we laid those guidelines out, the kids were really they were so much more creative than I could ever be. They all wrote, they made pictures for the other students. They wrote little like cartoons and things like that. So I think it was just such an amazing experience, because you get these kids who are in 8th grade, and I have an 8th grader, so I know this for a fact, they can be kind of jerks. And to have them kind of step back and say, hey, I was that kid once, maybe I can help this person. They went out of their way to do that. And I'm so fortunate to have had Walter come into our life and get this ball rolling. And I really can't wait to see where it goes.
Well, yeah, and to add something before, when Nancy told me to put the brakes on my ideas a little bit about as far as having the kids write letters to some other elementary school students or other students in other countries, I besides making a contact with this Stacy Ann Shaw down in Jamaica, who's a teacher with the Ministry of Education down in Jamaica, down in Hope's area. Well, I had also thought, well, maybe something a little bit more local. So I reached out to Tiffany Kaleo, who I know is a teacher, and also I was thinking about reaching out to Megan Kufa. They're both up in Division 15, and I knew that they were both teachers. And before I got a chance to talk to Megan or ask Megan about the possibility of doing something I actually did email Tiffany, and she said yes, that she's not a 4th grade teacher, but she works with 4th grade teachers, because this was Mr. Molina's class that originally started writing to the letters that I ended up giving to Kathy. He's a 4th grade teacher, so it was 4th graders that were writing. And Tiffany said, well, I'll reach, yes, I think that this would be a good idea. I'll reach out to a 4th grade teacher up at the Wyoming area elementary school, or the school district up there. So, and obviously we had some other people on our Zoom meetings previously from California and several other states here still in the United States. So that was my overall thought about this Pen Pal program. If it was something that could kind of get going, why through Kiwanis there would be a number of resources for these youngsters at Paxinosa to be able to write to other people. And maybe it was overly ambitious for me, but that was the overall idea. So are there any questions? That's about all I have to say, really. But are there any questions from any of our fellow Kiwanians for either Nancy or me? Yeah, Skip.
Thank you, Walt and Nancy. Question for Nancy. It sounds like a great opportunity for these kids that are in 5th grade that are getting ready to go to the middle school to get some insight from other kids that are there. Has this idea been postured to any of the other schools?
No, but I think that I will. I kind of like to make mistakes on small levels before I roll things out. So this is something I did talk to Dr. Simia at the middle school about establishing something for all the 5th graders at some point, but I didn't really contact anyone because I really wanted to work out all the kinks. The other obstacle is, or not even an obstacle, but I always make sure that there's enough letters. So if 10 letters go out, 10 letters have to come back. And even if that means changing somebody's name because they moved or something, because we don't want anybody to have a negative experience or feel left out. But I really do think just getting the kids to know each other, because Easton is such a diverse community that if you grew up in Forks, you probably never played baseball with someone from Paxinosa. And if you went to March, you probably don't know any Palmer kids because, they played soccer in a different league or something like that. So other than those things to bring the kids together, I think this would be another thing. And just kind of have a little empathy for each other before they get there, before they all start kind of strutting around and trying to be older than they are.
I want to make a comment, something that you said earlier about, which was the idea behind going out, having students at the middle school. I can attest to the fact that when Ken and Nick and I would go up to the Builders Club meeting to meet with Mrs. Kuvo or some of the other faculty advisors, it is like a maze trying to find where the teacher's room is, where these youngsters are meeting for a Builders Club meeting. That school is humongous up there.
It is. And when my son started there, and Mr. Fairchild, my son Owen is friends with your Owen and Oliver. He went to school, he grew up with Oliver. So when they started, it was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So now Palmer's using that, but there's this whole immense campus. And if you forgot something in the front office, you could almost take a cab to go back to it because it was so big. But it's a great school and there's a lot of good potential. There's an amazing Picasso program there for after school. And we just kind of want to build on that. We want to let kids know it's not, this big scary place. It's a place where you learn a lot of things and get ready for high school. And both of my kids had fantastic experiences at the middle school. And I'd like to continue that for my other kids, my PAX kids, and the other students in the district.
Nancy, just so you know, something that's Kiwanis related, and you may already know this. I can't remember the name of the faculty advisor, but Easton High School has a Key Club, which is a Kiwanis sponsored club by the Palmer Township Kiwanis. And those members are actually Kiwanis members of the Key Club out there.
They do wonderful things. We've reached out to them several times on different levels when we needed help with volunteers. Being the parent of kids in the Honor Society, I always know that kids are desperate for service hours. So I always try and reach out if we need some filing done or some labeling done. Last summer, we gave the kids all fun kits because they weren't going to be here in person, and they helped with things like that. So yeah, we're really, I'm a firm believer in Rovers helping Rovers. Easton is such an amazing place, and I feel like every kid should benefit from that.
Any other questions? Anybody else have a question for me or Nancy? Bill?
Bill, it's not really a question. One of the things that Walt and I discussed many months ago when he was talking about doing this thing outside the country and possibly covering the cost of getting these things mailed one way or the other, I said, look, build the program. We'll figure out how to pay for it later, because I'm sure our club will pay for it one way, shape, or another. And what we came up with an idea is I said, well, if a teacher here in Easton collects 12, 15 handwritten letters, we can either send them as a bulk mail or scan them into a computer here and digitize and mail it to a school in what other foreign land? Because today we don't even need the post office to get a letter from Easton to London. You can do it as a PDF file. So, we've got ways of getting these things from one part of the world to another part of the world electronically, or they can handwrite them. We can put them in a bulk mail package, and for like $7, $8, it can go literally most any place in Europe from here as media mail and things like that. So we've got the way to get it around the country as this program grows.
I think that'll be one of the easier aspects of when we expand. I was even thinking of asking different companies that have an international presence. I know there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies. So for example, if Pfizer is sending something over to Zurich already, maybe they would find it in their hearts to deliver 5 letters for us or something. So, I mean, that's in the planning stages, but I think it's definitely possible to do it without spending a lot of money.
I have a question. I guess these are all handwritten in cursive or print. Okay, we have a grandson in 6th grade, and it's awful. Okay.
Yeah, the handwriting is a little. They don't do cursive anymore. But one of the things that Walter and I talked about, and I was adamant about, was it has to be handwritten.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Spelling doesn't matter. Grammar doesn't matter. But there's that aspect of your personality that comes out when you write things and not when you type them. We did have some teachers, we have students that struggle a little with that. So we had teachers who wrote down their thoughts, but we wanted to keep that personal aspect to it.
Okay. I mean, I can't tell you the last time from doing it at work. I mean, everything's, you look at a screen and you compose things that way, as opposed to my wife, Sue, who'll write everything. Okay.
Yeah, it serves as a reminder for you and just kind of slows you down a little bit.